Sometimes the person who changes your life is the one you almost never notice. The rain had been falling over downtown Portland for hours, turning the streets into ribbons of reflected light and pushing people through restaurant doors faster than usual. Inside a small family diner tucked between a bookstore and a pharmacy, every table was occupied. Waitresses moved quickly between crowded booths while the smell of coffee, grilled sandwiches, and fresh pie filled the air. At a corner table near the window sat Ethan Brooks, a man most people in America would recognize instantly if they knew he was there. But tonight, dressed in a simple navy jacket with no security detail in sight, the billionaire looked like any other customer trying to escape a long day. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly while reviewing notes on his phone, though his attention kept drifting toward the rain outside. Then the diner door opened again. A woman stepped inside holding the hand of a little girl. Ethan noticed them immediately, not because they were loud, not because they demanded attention. Quite the opposite. The woman seemed determined not to inconvenience anyone. Her blonde hair was damp from the rain, and her worn jacket looked too thin for the chilly evening. The little girl beside her, no older than 7, smiled despite the weather and clutched a small backpack decorated with faded cartoon stars. The hostess glanced around the packed room and gave an apologetic shrug. There were no available tables. The woman thanked her politely and looked around, clearly considering whether she and her daughter should leave. Ethan felt something unexpected tighten in his chest. He had seen that expression before. Years ago, long before the companies, the interviews, and the magazine covers. The woman scanned the room one more time and finally noticed the empty seat across from him. For a brief second she hesitated. Then she walked over. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Can I sit here?" Ethan looked up. Their eyes met. The moment lasted only a second, but it felt strangely familiar. "Only if you eat too," he replied. Surprise crossed her face. Then she laughed quietly. "That sounds like a condition." "It is," Ethan said. The little girl giggled. The woman finally smiled. "Fair enough." They sat down. As they removed their rain-soaked jackets, Ethan found himself studying her features. Something about her seemed connected to a memory he couldn't quite reach. A memory from years ago that had never completely left him. The waitress arrived with menus. The woman glanced at the prices for barely a moment before closing hers. Ethan noticed. So did the waitress. "Just a glass of water for me," the woman said. "And what about you, sweetheart?" The little girl pointed at a grilled cheese sandwich. Her mother hesitated before nodding. Ethan said nothing, but the memory tugging at the edge of his mind suddenly grew stronger. He knew he had seen this woman before. The question was where and why, after all these years, had fate placed her at his table on a rainy Tuesday night. The waitress smiled warmly at Lily before writing down the order. 1 grilled cheese sandwich. "Anything else?" Emma glanced at her daughter and then at the menu one more time, as if hoping the numbers might somehow change. "That is all for us," she said politely. Ethan noticed the familiar look again. It was not embarrassment. It was calculation. The careful math of someone making every dollar count. After the waitress walked away, Lily rested her elbows on the table and looked out the rain-covered window. "I like storms," she said. "They make the city look shiny." Ethan chuckled. "That is one way to look at it. Mom says every bad day has something good hiding in it." Ethan looked toward Emma. "Sounds like good advice." Emma shrugged modestly. "Life gets easier when you look for the good parts." The answer was simple, but it stayed with him. Most people he met spent their time complaining. Yet this woman, sitting in a crowded diner with a glass of water for dinner, somehow sounded grateful. A few minutes later, the waitress returned carrying a tray. Along with Lily's sandwich, there was a bowl of soup and another sandwich. Emma frowned immediately. "I think there is a mistake." The waitress glanced at Ethan. Before she could speak, he said, "Actually, I ordered extra." Emma shook her head. "You did not have to do that." "I know. I cannot let you pay for my meal." "Then do not think of it as a meal." Emma raised an eyebrow. "What should I think of it as?" Ethan smiled. "Think of it as preventing me from eating 2 sandwiches." Lily giggled so hard, she almost spilled her water. Emma tried not to smile, but she lost the battle. For the first time that evening, she accepted the plate. As they ate, conversation came naturally. Ethan learned that Emma worked 2 jobs. One during the day at a small medical office and another several evenings each week handling bookkeeping for a local business. Every hour she could find went toward rent, groceries, school supplies, and making sure Lily had opportunities she never had growing up. What surprised him most was what she did not say. She never asked for sympathy. She never complained about being a single mother. She simply described her life as though hard work were as normal as breathing. Meanwhile, Ethan shared very little about himself. He mentioned working in business, but avoided details. To his surprise, Emma never pressed for more information. Most people became curious the moment they sensed success. Emma seemed interested only in the person sitting across from her. Halfway through the meal, Lily suddenly pointed toward a framed photograph hanging near the cash register. "That lady looks like my grandma," she said. Emma laughed softly. "You do not have a grandma who owns a diner." "Maybe I should." Ethan watched them together. The affection between mother and daughter was impossible to miss. And then it happened. Emma tilted her head while listening to Lily, and Ethan felt a shock of recognition. Not certainty. Not yet. Just a memory moving closer to the surface. Somewhere in his past, years before he became the man he was today, he had seen that same expression before. And for the first time all evening, he began to wonder if this meeting was not an accident at all. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle by the time they finished eating, but none of them seemed eager to leave. The diner had become quieter as the evening crowd thinned out, and for reasons Ethan could not fully explain, he found himself enjoying the company more than any business dinner he had attended in years. Lily was drawing on a paper placemat with crayons the waitress had given her, while Emma wrapped the remaining half of her sandwich to take home. It was a small gesture, but Ethan noticed it. Nothing went to waste. Not food. Not money. Not opportunity. "What is your masterpiece?" he asked Lily. She proudly turned the placemat around. It showed a house with a bright yellow door, a flower garden, and 3 stick figures standing in front of it. "That is me and Mom," Lily explained. Ethan pointed to the third figure. "And who is that?" Lily studied the drawing for a moment. "I do not know yet." Emma laughed softly. "She is always adding extra people to her pictures. Because houses are supposed to be full," Lily said matter-of-factly. The simple answer landed harder than Ethan expected. For a moment, he looked away toward the rain-speckled window. Houses are supposed to be full. Years ago, he would have agreed. Then life had become a series of boardrooms, private flights, investor meetings, and luxury penthouses that felt increasingly empty. Emma folded her napkin neatly. "Thank you again for dinner. You have thanked me at least 5 times. That is because I was raised properly. Then your parents did a good job." A shadow crossed her face for only a second. "They tried." Ethan sensed there was more to the story but did not press. Instead, he asked, "And what about Lily? What does she want to be someday?" Lily answered before her mother could. "A veterinarian. Or an astronaut. Or maybe both. That is ambitious. Mom says I can do anything if I work hard enough." Ethan looked at Emma again. "And what do you want?" She seemed surprised by the question. "For myself? Yes." Emma hesitated. "Honestly, I have been so busy taking care of everything that I have not thought about it in a long time." The answer stayed with him. Most people had a list of things they wanted. A bigger house. A promotion. A luxury car. Emma seemed to have forgotten how to want things for herself at all. Then another memory flickered in Ethan's mind. A bus station. A cold winter afternoon. His mother sitting alone with tears in her eyes. And a young woman offering help when she had no reason to stop. The image vanished before he could fully grasp it, but the feeling remained. Stronger now. Familiar. Important. The clock above the counter showed nearly 8 o'clock. Emma glanced at it and stood. "We should go. School tomorrow." Lily slid off her chair and grabbed her backpack. Ethan rose as well. As they gathered their things, he realized something unexpected. He did not want this evening to end. Not because of attraction. Not yet. It was something deeper than that. A feeling that he had stumbled across a missing piece of a story he had forgotten years ago. As Emma thanked him one final time and headed toward the door with Lily, Ethan watched them leave. Just before stepping outside, Emma turned and offered a small wave. Then they disappeared into the night. Ethan remained standing beside the table for several seconds. He knew one thing with complete certainty. This would not be the last time he saw Emma Parker. For the next several days, Ethan told himself he was too busy to think about the woman from the diner. Unfortunately, his mind refused to cooperate. During meetings, he caught himself remembering the way Emma had quietly packed half a sandwich to take home. During conference calls, he remembered Lily talking about a house that was supposed to be full. By Friday afternoon, He finally admitted what he had already known. He wanted to see them again. Not because he was lonely. Not because he was bored. Because something about Emma Parker felt connected to a chapter of his life that had never truly closed. That evening, he returned to the diner. The rain was gone, replaced by a clear sky painted orange and gold by the setting sun. Ethan walked inside pretending he had no expectations. Then he saw them. Emma and Lily were sitting in the same corner booth. Lily was working on homework while Emma reviewed paperwork from a folder spread across the table. Ethan could not stop a smile from appearing. Lily spotted him first. Her eyes widened. "Mom, it is the sandwich guy." Emma looked up and laughed. "I cannot believe that is what you remember him for." Ethan approached their table. "I have had worse introductions." Lily pointed at the empty seat. "You can sit there." Emma shook her head. "You do not have to invite strangers to our table." "But he bought sandwiches." Ethan pulled out the chair. "That is a very strong argument." To his surprise, Emma did not object. As the evening progressed, conversation became effortless. Lily proudly showed him a spelling test with a perfect score. Emma explained that her daughter had worked hard all week to earn it. Ethan listened more than he spoke. It had been years since he spent time around people who talked about ordinary victories with such genuine excitement. Then something unexpected happened. The diner owner walked over carrying a slice of pie. "This one is on the house," she said, placing it in front of Emma. Emma looked confused. "Why?" The older woman smiled. "Because you helped my grandson with his reading assignment last month when nobody else would." Emma immediately tried to refuse. The owner insisted. After she left, Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You tutor children now?" Emma shrugged. "Only when they need help." "And do they pay you?" "Most of them cannot." Ethan leaned back in his chair. Every new detail seemed to confirm what he was beginning to suspect. Emma helped people whenever she could, even when she clearly had very little to spare. Later, while Lily colored another picture, Emma stepped away to take a phone call. Ethan watched her move toward the entrance. The moment she was out of earshot, the diner owner returned. "You know her?" she asked. "Not very well," Ethan admitted. The woman smiled knowingly. "That young lady has been helping people around here for years. Never asks for recognition. Never expects anything back." Ethan glanced toward the door where Emma stood speaking softly into her phone. The memory inside his mind suddenly sharpened. A freezing winter afternoon nearly 12 years earlier. A frightened young man. A struggling mother. And a kind stranger who stopped long enough to change everything. For the first time, Ethan felt certain. Emma Parker was not just familiar. She was the woman he had been searching for without even realizing it. That night, after leaving the diner, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse overlooking the city skyline. But his attention was nowhere near the floor-to-ceiling windows or the endless stream of emails waiting for him. Instead, his mind kept returning to a memory from 12 years earlier. Back then, he had not been a billionaire. He had been a struggling 27-year-old trying to keep his small startup alive while caring for a mother whose health challenges had turned every week into a financial balancing act. One winter afternoon, after receiving disappointing news from a potential investor, Ethan had found his mother sitting alone at a crowded bus station. She had missed her ride home because she did not have enough money for another ticket. A young woman had noticed her distress. Without hesitation, she had purchased a ticket, bought her a hot meal, and sat beside her until the next bus arrived. According to his mother, the young woman had refused repayment. She had simply smiled and said, "Everyone needs help sometimes." Ethan remembered searching for that woman afterward. His mother had wanted to thank her properly, but they never found her. Years passed. Success arrived. Life changed. Yet his mother occasionally mentioned the stranger who had helped her during one of the hardest seasons of their lives. Now Ethan was almost certain that stranger was Emma Parker. The following afternoon, he visited his mother, Margaret Brooks, at her home outside the city. She greeted him with a warm hug and immediately noticed the unusual expression on his face. "What happened?" she asked. "You look like someone who finally solved a mystery." Ethan laughed. "Maybe I did." He described Emma without mentioning her name. As soon as he spoke about the kindness, the quiet confidence, and the way she helped people without expecting recognition, his mother grew still. "Do you think it is really her?" Margaret asked softly. "I do." His mother smiled. Then life has a remarkable sense of timing. Ethan spent the rest of the visit listening as his mother recalled details he had nearly forgotten. She remembered the young woman carrying grocery bags that day. She remembered that. The woman looked exhausted but still chose to help a stranger. Most of all, she remembered feeling seen during a moment when the world had felt indifferent. By the time Ethan drove back to Portland that evening, his certainty had only grown stronger. Meanwhile, across town, Emma was helping Lily finish a school project at their kitchen table. Their small apartment was modest but tidy. Construction paper, markers, and science worksheets covered most of the table. Lily carefully glued pictures onto a poster board while Emma reviewed monthly expenses beside her. "Mom," Lily suddenly said, "do you think we will see Ethan again?" Emma looked up. The question caught her off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "Because he seems lonely." Emma blinked. "Lonely?" Lily nodded. "Sometimes people smile even when they are lonely." Emma thought about that for a moment. She remembered Ethan sitting alone in the diner, always listening more than talking. "Maybe," she admitted. Lily smiled. "Then I hope we see him again." Neither of them knew that at that exact moment, Ethan was making a decision of his own. He was not going to reveal the truth yet. Not until he was absolutely certain. But one thing had become clear. The woman who had changed his family's life years ago had just walked back into it, and this time he was not going to let her disappear. Over the next 2 weeks, seeing Ethan became an unexpected part of Emma and Lily's routine. Sometimes he appeared at the diner after work. Other times he happened to be nearby when Lily finished an after-school activity. None of the encounters felt forced, yet each one added another thread to a connection that seemed to be growing naturally. For Lily, the friendship was already settled. In her mind, Ethan was simply someone she trusted. For Emma, things were more complicated. She liked talking to him. She appreciated how easily he listened and how rarely he spoke about himself. Yet there was also a mystery surrounding him that she could not quite explain. One Thursday evening, Emma arrived at the diner looking more tired than usual. Ethan noticed it immediately. The cheerful energy she normally carried seemed weighed down by something. Even Lily was quieter than normal. After ordering dinner, Ethan gently asked, "Long day?" Emma forced a smile. "You could say that." Lily looked up from her coloring book. "Mom lost a client." Emma gave her daughter a look. "Lily." "What?" "It is true." Ethan remained calm. "What happened?" Emma sighed. "The small business I handled bookkeeping for decided to outsource everything. It was not personal, just business." She tried to sound unconcerned, but Ethan could hear the disappointment beneath her words. "Will you be okay?" he asked. "Eventually." She folded her hands together. "It just means I need to find extra work again." Ethan felt an immediate urge to solve the problem. One phone call could connect her with opportunities she had never imagined. One recommendation from him could change her financial situation overnight. But something stopped him. He remembered his mother's words. Emma valued dignity as much as opportunity. Helping her the wrong way might feel more like charity than respect. "You will find something," he said instead. Emma smiled weakly. "That sounds suspiciously optimistic. Maybe I have faith in your track record." For the first time all evening, she laughed. Across the room, a television mounted above the counter suddenly switched to a local business segment. A reporter stood in front of a newly completed office tower while discussing one of the city's largest development projects. Ethan glanced at the screen and quickly looked away. Unfortunately, Lily noticed his reaction. "That building looks familiar," she said. Before Ethan could respond, the segment ended and the channel changed. Emma never saw the company logo. Ethan silently thanked his luck. His secret was becoming harder to keep. The following Monday brought another challenge. Emma received notice that her apartment complex would be increasing rent at the end of the lease term. The amount was enough to create serious concern. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Emma sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at numbers that refused to cooperate. She did not know it, but at almost the same moment, Ethan sat in his office reviewing information that had just landed on his desk. A business rival had begun investigating people connected to him, searching for weaknesses to exploit during an upcoming corporate negotiation. One name in the report immediately caught his attention: Emma Parker. Ethan's expression hardened with concern. For the first time since reconnecting with her, he realized that keeping her close might expose her to problems she never asked for. The next few days brought a tension Ethan could not ignore. The report from his legal team had confirmed that a competing executive named Victor Hale was looking for leverage before a major contract negotiation. Victor had built a reputation for turning personal information into strategic advantage, and now Emma's name had somehow appeared on a list of people connected to Ethan. There was nothing improper about their friendship, but Ethan knew how easily appearances could be twisted when money and power were involved. For the first time, he considered stepping back from Emma's life. The idea lasted less than an hour. Every reason to distance himself was outweighed by one simple truth. He cared what happened to her and Lily. Meanwhile, Emma continued searching for additional work. She spent evenings updating her resume, contacting local businesses, and taking freelance bookkeeping assignments whenever possible. She never mentioned how worried she felt, but the stress showed in small ways. She slept less. She checked her budget more often. She smiled a little less frequently. One Saturday morning, Ethan met Emma and Lily at a community fundraiser held in a city park. Families filled the walking paths while local vendors sold handmade crafts and baked goods. Lily immediately dragged Ethan toward a booth where children could paint birdhouses. Within minutes, she had paint on her hands, her sleeves, and somehow even her shoes. "I think that birdhouse has a better chance than my sneakers," Ethan joked. Lily laughed. "Art is messy." As they spent the afternoon together, Emma seemed more relaxed than she had in weeks. For a few hours, financial worries faded into the background. Then the mood shifted. A sharply dressed man approached one of the event organizers nearby and began speaking, loudly enough for several people to hear. Ethan recognized him immediately from photographs. "Victor Hale." Ethan turned slightly away, hoping to avoid attention. Unfortunately, Victor's eyes landed on him. Surprise flashed across the man's face before being replaced by a calculating smile. Victor walked over. "Well, this is unexpected," he said. Emma looked confused. "You know each other?" Before Ethan could answer, Victor continued. "Of course we do. Everyone in business knows Ethan Brooks." The world seemed to stop for a second. Emma blinked. "Ethan Brooks." Lily looked from one adult to the other. "Wait, you are famous?" Ethan felt his stomach sink. This was not how he wanted the truth to come out. Victor appeared almost amused by the silence. "You mean she did not know?" Emma stared at Ethan. Suddenly, countless small mysteries began connecting inside her mind. The business references he avoided. The television segment he had looked away from. The confidence that never quite matched an ordinary career. Ethan met her gaze. "Emma, I can explain." She looked hurt more than angry. "How long were you planning to keep this from me?" Before he could answer, Victor smiled and walked away, clearly satisfied with the disruption he had created. The fundraiser continued around them, but for Ethan, Emma, and Lily, the afternoon had changed completely. The secret he had protected for weeks was finally out, and the consequences were only beginning. Emma barely spoke during the drive home from the fundraiser. Lily sensed the tension and quietly looked out the window from the back seat, while Ethan followed behind in his own car, knowing that forcing a conversation would only make things worse. By the time Emma reached her apartment, she felt a mixture of disappointment, confusion, and frustration. It was not Ethan's success that bothered her. It was the fact that he had hidden such a significant part of his life while allowing their friendship to grow. For 3 days, she ignored his messages. They were respectful, never demanding. Each one simply asked for an opportunity to explain. Emma was tempted to respond several times, but something stopped her. During those same 3 days, Ethan found himself thinking less about business and more about the possibility of losing someone who had become important to him. Then an unexpected invitation arrived. Brooks Dynamics was hosting its annual Community Leadership Gala, an event recognizing local residents who had made meaningful contributions to the city. Ethan had approved the guest list weeks earlier without giving it much thought. Now he noticed one particular name, Emma Parker. Nominated by multiple community organizations for years of volunteer work and quiet service. Ethan saw an opportunity, not to impress her, not to buy forgiveness, simply to tell the truth. After some encouragement from friends and coworkers, Emma decided to attend. The gala was held in a beautifully restored historic building overlooking the river. She borrowed a dress from a friend and arrived feeling slightly out of place. Lily stayed with a trusted neighbor for the evening. As Emma entered the ballroom, she immediately noticed the contrast between her life and the world around her. Business leaders, public officials, and wealthy donors filled the room. For a moment, she considered leaving. Then she remembered why she was there. The award was not about status. It was about service. As the evening progressed, Emma tried to remain unnoticed. Unfortunately, Not everyone shared that intention. Near one of the reception tables, she overheard a conversation between two guests who had apparently recognized her from local community work. One woman glanced in Emma's direction and said quietly, though not quietly enough, "I heard she is the woman everyone keeps seeing around Ethan Brooks." The other woman smiled skeptically. Interesting coincidence. Emma immediately understood the implication. Before she could walk away, more comments followed. None were openly cruel, but the assumptions behind them were clear. People were drawing conclusions about her motives without knowing anything about her. She felt her face grow warm. Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted. "The coincidence is not what you think." The room grew noticeably quieter. Ethan had stepped forward. Calm, confident, unmistakably serious. He looked directly at the small group. "The truth is that Emma Parker helped my family long before anyone knew my name." Several people exchanged surprised glances. Ethan continued, 12 years ago, when my mother was struggling through one of the hardest periods of her life, Emma stopped to help a stranger. She asked for nothing in return. No recognition. No reward. She simply chose kindness." The room became completely silent. Ethan then turned toward Emma. "Everything I have achieved came after that chapter of my life. If anyone should be admired here tonight, it is the woman who helped someone when she had every reason to keep walking." For the first time, Emma understood why Ethan had seemed familiar from the beginning. And for the first time, she saw the full truth behind his silence. For several seconds after Ethan finished speaking, Emma could not find words. The ballroom around them seemed distant, as though every conversation, every clinking glass, and every movement had faded into the background. She stared at him while memories resurfaced. A cold afternoon years ago, a worried woman waiting alone, a simple act of kindness that had felt insignificant at the time. She had never imagined anyone would remember it, let alone carry the memory for more than a decade. Later that evening, after the ceremony ended and most guests had departed, Emma and Ethan found a quiet corner overlooking the river. City lights reflected across the water while a cool breeze drifted through the open terrace doors. "Why did you not tell me?" Emma asked gently. Ethan looked out toward the skyline before answering. "Because I wanted to know you, not influence you." Emma listened quietly. "The moment I realized who you might be, everything became complicated. I worried that if I told you the truth, our friendship would stop being real." Emma considered his words. For the first time, she understood the burden his success sometimes carried. People often reacted to the title before the person. "And what if I had never found out?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "Eventually I would have told you. I just needed the courage to do it myself." Emma laughed softly. "For someone who runs billion-dollar companies, you took a surprisingly long time. Some conversations are harder than board meetings." That answer made her smile. It was the first completely relaxed moment they had shared since the fundraiser. Over the following months, life began changing in ways neither of them had expected. Ethan never tried to solve Emma's problems with money. Instead, he offered something far more valuable: support, encouragement, respect. When she applied for a position with a growing financial services company, he reviewed her resume only when she specifically asked for advice. When she earned the job through her own qualifications, he celebrated her success without taking credit for any part of it. Meanwhile, Lily became an increasingly important part of Ethan's life. He attended school events when invited, helped with science projects, sat through elementary school concerts with genuine enthusiasm. The relationship developed naturally, never forced and never rushed. One evening nearly a year after their first meeting in the diner, Ethan invited Emma and Lily to a small picnic in a riverside park. The weather was perfect. Families walked nearby. Children played on open fields. It felt less like a special occasion and more like a peaceful Saturday afternoon. After lunch, Lily suddenly reached into her backpack. "I have been waiting forever for this part," she announced. Emma looked confused. Ethan looked equally surprised. Lily pulled out a small velvet box and handed it directly to Ethan. "You almost forgot the plan." Ethan laughed. "I definitely did not forget." Emma's eyes widened as realization dawned. Ethan took the box, stood, and looked at her with the same sincerity she had seen from the beginning. "The best thing that ever happened to me was meeting the woman who believed kindness mattered, even when nobody was watching," he said. "The second best thing was finding her again." Emma felt tears fill her eyes as Ethan asked her to marry him. Before she could answer, Lily threw both hands into the air. Say yes. I have been keeping that secret for 3 weeks. Laughing through happy tears, Emma finally nodded. 1 year later, the drawing Lily once made in the diner became reality. A home filled with laughter, a family built on trust, and 3 people who learned that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can travel through time and return as the greatest gift of all.